Somewhere in a vault beneath London, silver is disappearing, and almost nobody has noticed. Not stolen, not seized, just gone. Quietly moved out of the system that has priced this metal for 200 years. And the strange part is this. The reason everyone thinks silver is tight isn't actually the reason it's tight at all. If you're interested in money, investing, gold, silver, and protecting your financial future, subscribe to Money Insights and like this video, because every week we break down the biggest financial stories in simple English. Here's why this matters right now. Silver just went through one of the wildest 12 months in its 5,000-year history as money. In January of this year, it did something it had never done before in nominal terms. It broke above $100 an ounce, eventually touching an all-time high of $121, 67 per troy ounce on January 29th, 2026. Then it fell. Hard. As of the end of July, silver was trading around $58 an ounce, roughly half of where it stood just 6 months earlier. To most people watching a chart, that looks like a bubble that popped. A story that's over. SD bullion +2. But here's where everything changes. The physical market underneath that price, the actual metal, the bars, the coins, the vault inventories, never stopped tightening. Even as the price collapsed by half, the shortage got worse, not better. And that split between what the price is doing and what the metal is doing is the entire story tonight. Let's rewind and understand why silver even got to $121 in the first place, because almost everyone got the explanation wrong. For the last few years, the accepted story about silver has been simple: solar panels. Silver is one of the best conductors of electricity on Earth, and every photovoltaic solar cell needs a thin paste of it to carry current. As the world built solar farms at a record pace. The story went, industrial demand would keep eating silver faster than mines could dig it up, and prices would have nowhere to go but up. For years, that story held. But in 2026, something almost nobody expected happened. Solar manufacturers, squeezed by silver prices that had already doubled, started ripping silver out of their own products. Engineers redesigned photovoltaic cells to use less paste per panel, a process called thrifting. According to the Silver Institute and Metals Focus, silver used in solar panels is projected to drop about 19% in 2026 to roughly 151 million ounces, after already falling 6% the year before. That's the single biggest one-year drop in the history of solar silver demand. Gold, silver now, here's the part most people miss. If the whole silver story was really about solar panels, this should have broken the bull case wide open. Less silver demand should mean a looser market, lower prices. The shortage narrative quietly retired. That is not what happened. Because even with solar cutting its silver appetite by nearly a fifth, the global silver market is still projected to run its sixth consecutive annual deficit in 2026, meaning demand has now outpaced mine supply for 6 years running without a single year of relief. That shortfall is expected to widen to roughly 46.3 million ounces, up from 40.3 million ounces in 2025. Supply and demand are both shrinking at the same time, and when both sides of a ledger shrink together, the gap between them doesn't close. It stays open. Investing news, network carbon credits. So if it isn't solar keeping this market tight, what is? This is the hidden connection almost nobody outside the bullion trade has been tracking. Go back to October of last year. Silver was climbing, and something strange started happening in the London market. The benchmark that most of the world's silver trading actually settles against. Investors began pulling physical metal out of dealer networks into two places: CME-approved vaults in the United States and silver-backed exchange-traded funds. Both of those destinations have one thing in common. Once metal goes in, it effectively leaves circulation. It stops being available to refiners, to manufacturers, to anyone who actually needs to touch real silver to run a business. Picture a warehouse with a slow, steady leak. That's what mine supply looks like against demand. Now picture someone opening a second tap and draining the tank twice as fast. That's what a retail buying wave does to an already thin inventory. According to the Silver Institute's own analysis, that October rush triggered a genuine liquidity squeeze in the London market, and the tension it created didn't fully resolve. It carried straight into the new year and helped drive silver to its January record above $121. Here's an unexpected statistic that puts this in perspective. Since 2021, the global silver market has drawn down its above-ground stockpiles, the metal sitting in vaults, exchanges, and dealer inventories built up over decades, by roughly 762 million troy ounces. That's more than a full year's worth of global mine production, simply eaten away, year after year, just to keep the market functioning. And COMEX, the main U.S. futures exchange, has felt it directly. Registered silver stocks on COMEX have fallen from around 150 million ounces in early 2021 to under 70 million ounces by late 2025, less than half of where they started. Carbon credits, plus. Why does this matter to an ordinary person who has never bought a single ounce of silver in their life? Because this is what a genuine physical shortage looks like from the inside, long before it shows up as a headline. It looks like premiums on coins and bars quietly creeping up at your local dealer. It looks like wait lists for popular bullion products. It looks like a metal getting harder to buy in small amounts, precisely because large institutions are locking it away in bulk. And this is where the title of tonight's story starts to make sense. Silver may be building toward another explosive move, but if it happens, the immediate trigger probably won't be a factory in Shenzhen building more solar panels. It's far more likely to be ordinary investors in living rooms and coin shops, deciding all at once that they want physical metal in their hands. That's not speculation pulled out of thin air. The data is already pointing that direction. The Silver Institute's own 2026 forecast projects global coin and bar demand to climb another 18% this year, reaching about 257.6 million ounces, the highest level since 2022, with a large piece of that driven by a 57% rebound in U.S. retail buying. Meanwhile, global silver-backed ETF holdings sit at an estimated 1.31 billion ounces, with analysts at Metals Focus expecting further net inflows this year on top of that. TRB Bullion plus 4. Now here's a contradiction worth sitting with for a moment. Not every analyst agrees on how tight this actually is. UBS strategists have argued the 2026 deficit could actually narrow sharply, down to somewhere between 60 and 70 million ounces, a fraction of earlier, more dramatic estimates, pointing to softer investment demand and higher mine output as reasons for caution. The Silver Institute sees it differently, insisting the deficit is widening, not shrinking, precisely because retail buying is replacing the industrial demand that high prices have started to erode. Two respected sources, looking at the same market, reaching different conclusions. That disagreement itself tells you something. This market is genuinely uncertain, and anyone promising you a guaranteed outcome hasn't been paying close attention. History tells a very different story from what most beginners assume about tight markets, and it's worth understanding before going any further. Silver has approached the $50 mark exactly twice before in modern history. Once in 1980, when the Hunt brothers attempted to corner the entire global silver market using enormous amounts of borrowed money, driving prices to roughly $49.45 an ounce before the whole structure collapsed under its own weight. Once again in 2011, when a wave of investment fever pushed silver to about $48.70, only for it to fall sharply once the momentum faded. In both cases, the underlying story wasn't false. Silver really was scarce, really was in demand, but the speed of the price move outran the reality of the market, and gravity eventually won. This tiny detail changes everything about how you should read the current moment. Silver didn't just approach $50 this time, it blew straight through it, all the way to $121, before losing nearly half its value in a matter of months. If you're only looking at the price chart, that looks like history repeating itself, a familiar spike and collapse. But the physical data underneath tells a more complicated story because, unlike 1980 or 2011, the metal itself hasn't come rushing back into the market as prices fell. Above-ground stockpiles are still being drawn down. COMEX inventories are still historically thin. The deficit, by the Silver Institute's own numbers, is still forecast to widen this year, not shrink. That's the bigger pattern hiding beneath the headlines. Price and scarcity have partly decoupled. Financial markets, futures positioning, dollar strength, risk sentiment are moving the price day to day. But the structural deficit is a slower moving force underneath all of that. And it doesn't reset just because the price pulled back, which brings in a second engine driving this story, the Federal Reserve. This year's silver drama has unfolded against one of the more unusual chapters in recent Fed history. Underchair. Kevin Warsh, the central bank, has kept its benchmark rate steady in the range of 3.50 to 3.75%, but not without internal disagreement. At the most recent meeting, three policymakers dissented, arguing for a rate hike rather than holding steady, something that hadn't happened at the Fed since 2016. Markets are currently pricing in roughly a 2 in 3 chance of a rate move by September, with the possibility of another increase by the middle of next year. Why should a retiree or a factory worker or a parent packing school lunches care about any of this? Because interest rate decisions ripple straight into precious metals. When the Fed holds rates steady or signals hesitation, the dollar tends to soften, and that alone can lift gold and silver prices, since both are priced in dollars globally. When the Fed leans toward tightening, the opposite tends to happen. The dollar firms up, and bullion often comes under pressure. That's part of why silver has been swinging so hard this year. It's caught between a genuinely tightening physical market on one side and a genuinely uncertain interest rate picture on the other. Layer in one more piece most casual viewers never hear about: geopolitics. Renewed military escalation involving Iran, which has been ongoing since late February, has kept oil prices elevated, which in turn keeps inflation worries alive, which in turn keeps the interest rate debate alive. It's a chain reaction. Energy, inflation, interest rates, currency, and finally precious metals. And silver sits at the very end of that chain, absorbing pressure from all directions at once. Here's a reality check worth taking seriously before going any further, because this is where a lot of documentaries either exaggerate or oversimplify. Silver is not gold. It trades in a much smaller, thinner market, which is exactly why it's historically been the more volatile of the two metals. The gold to silver ratio, essentially how many ounces of silver it takes to equal the value of 1 ounce of gold, recently sat around 69 to 70 to 1, a historically wide gap. Some analysts point out that ratios near this level have, in past cycles, preceded periods where silver outperformed gold as the smaller market played catch-up. That is a historical pattern, not a promise. Markets don't owe anyone a repeat performance just because a chart rhymed once or twice before. SD Bullion, Yahoo Finance. And there's a structural reason silver can't simply solve its own shortage the way people assume. Roughly 70% of all silver mined globally isn't dug up because someone was hunting for silver specifically. It comes out of the ground as a byproduct of mining for gold, copper, and zinc. That means even when silver prices triple, most mining companies can't simply mine more of it. Production is tied to decisions about entirely different metals made by entirely different companies for entirely different reasons. It's one of the quietest, least understood facts in the entire precious metals world. And it's a major reason why supply has stayed almost flat for the better part of a decade, even as prices have exploded. So where does that leave things sitting here at the end of July 2026, with silver near $58, down roughly half from its January peak, but still locked inside a market running its 6th straight year of deficit? The honest answer is genuinely uncertain in both directions. On one side, you have a structural shortage that hasn't gone away, above-ground stockpiles still being drawn down, coin and bar demand accelerating again, and a Federal Reserve whose next move could weaken the dollar and give bullion another tailwind. On the other side, you have a market that already tried to run too far, too fast, earlier this year, and paid for it with a brutal correction, a pattern that has repeated twice before in modern history, in 1980 and again in 2011. Some analysts believe the setup favors another push higher, potentially even a retest of the January highs, if retail buying and ETF inflows accelerate again the way they did last October. Others, like the strategists at UBS, believe the deficit narrative is overstated and expect prices to trade largely sideways from here. Both are reading real data. Neither has a crystal ball. What almost nobody is talking about and what actually deserves the headline is this. The next big move in silver, if it comes, probably won't be lit by a solar factory or an electric vehicle plant. Industrial demand is, by the industry's own numbers, shrinking this year, not growing. If silver explodes again, the far more likely spark is something much more human and much less predictable. Ordinary investors in ordinary countries deciding all at once to hold real metal in their hands. The same behavior that triggered October's squeeze and January's record high in the first place. That's a fundamentally different kind of risk than a slow industrial supercycle. Industrial demand moves in predictable, multi-year waves you can chart out in advance. Retail sentiment can shift in a single news cycle. It can be sparked by a Fed decision, a currency scare, a viral post, or simply enough people looking at the same chart and reaching the same conclusion at the same time. That unpredictability is exactly why silver has been, and will likely keep being, one of the most volatile assets in the entire financial world. None of this is a reason to panic, and it's not a guarantee of riches either. It's a reason to understand what you're actually looking at. The old story about silver, solar panels, and electric cars pulling the world into permanent scarcity is only part of the picture, and by the industry's own numbers, a shrinking part of it. The real engine underneath this metal right now is people. Retail investors quietly moving metal out of circulation, one coin and one bar at a time, against a backdrop of a central bank that hasn't yet decided what it wants to do next. So the next time you see silver's price jump, or crashed and on a headline, ask the question almost nobody else is asking. Is this about a factory somewhere building solar panels? Or is it about millions of ordinary people, all reaching the same conclusion at exactly the same moment? Because history suggests it's usually the second one that changes everything. And if that's true, the next chapter of this story may not be written by an engineer or a central banker at all. It may be written by someone a lot more like you. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial insights are coming next.